Pronation is one of the most important yet least understood motions in the serve. And pronation is critically important because it is a technique that allows you to accelerate your racket head through the tennis ball, adding spin and power. Every high-level tennis player, whether in college or on the pro tour, uses pronation when they serve. Now, what exactly is pronation? Well, if I take my hands and I face them at each other, and I rotate at my forearm and my wrist, so as a piece, I rotate them down. My palms are now facing down. That is pronation. And the opposite of that is called supination. So if I rotate my palms up, now I've supinated. So rotating down is pronation, rotating up is supination. A different way to describe it is with the karate chop analogy. If I chop towards the camera and then I pronate, I turn my palm. Again, it's my forearm and my wrist turning as one piece. If I turn this way, now I'm pronating. And maybe my favorite way to describe it is, if you get your cell phone out, I have a Motorola Q. If I'm talking on the phone and then I want to show you who I'm talking to, I have to pronate to show you the screen. And then if I want to look at the screen, I have to supinate. So I have to turn my forearm and wrist back towards me. I have a text message that I haven't looked at. That's supination. And then again, to turn it back to you, now I'm pronating. This is a shot of me shadowing the pronation. And what you're going to see is I start my motion, my forward swing, by swinging up with the edge of the tennis racket leading. So it kind of looks like, again, I'm karate chopping a little bit. But then I pronate with the forearm and the wrist so that now it's hard to see my strings because I've rotated them so that they'd be facing and they'd be making contact with the tennis ball. And what's going to happen when we play this forward is that I'm going to continue to pronate. I don't stop pronating when I make contact with the tennis ball. I continue to pronate so you can again see my strings. So essentially what happens is if my palm are my strings, I pronate so my strings are facing the camera, and then I continue to pronate so now they're facing the opposite direction. From the back view, we'll take a look at this angle and see what it looks like from here. Again, up on edge, and then to make contact, to open my strings to the tennis ball, it looks like that high-fiving motion. And then through contact, again, I continue to pronate to complete that motion. Now, how exactly does pronation add power and spin to your serve? When I swing up at the tennis ball, and I'm swinging up on edge, and then I pronate, I rotate the racket from here to here, and I'm doing that at a very high speed. I'm swinging pretty hard. And if I allowed this rotation to continue, the racket would rotate around like this. Now, this rotation has some rotational energy associated with it. And again, with a serve at a high level, it's going to be a lot of rotational energy. And when I pronate and make contact with the tennis ball, that rotational energy is transferred into the ball, and that's what adds power and spin to your serve. Now, I want to be clear because the act of pronating itself doesn't add spin to the tennis ball. Spin is added to the ball by brushing across the tennis ball, like this. If I brush across, I get spin on the ball. And we've already established that pronating makes the racket move faster. You accelerate it more, so you move the racket faster. And if I can move the racket faster across the tennis ball, I can brush up across it faster, and that's how you get more spin on your serve than you otherwise would. We're now going to look at Frank's serve, this from above, and see how he pronates when he gets to his contact point. This is Frank in his racket drop, and as he starts to swing up, if we freeze it here, now his racket is right on edge. And from this spot, he's going to pronate to make contact with the tennis ball. So he continues his swing, and he pronates with the forearm and the wrist to make contact with the tennis ball. And now let's rewind it all the way back to his racket drop, play it forward to contact, and watch how right before he makes contact with the tennis ball, when he starts to pronate, the racket really starts to accelerate more than it had been prior to. It moves faster than it had been earlier in the serve. And then he makes contact and continues his pronation through into his follow-through. And again, pronation adds that power and spin to his serve, which is so important in the modern game.